Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blissful one, the worthy one, the fully enlightened one. Today I want to tell you about why the housewife hired a courtesan and what happened. There was an occasion that caused the Buddha to say these verses, or this verse: conquer anger by love, conquer evil by good, conquer the stingy by giving, conquer the liar by truth. It's called the Four Victories. Here's the story behind why the Buddha said that verse. It all goes back to, whole thing started with a man named Puna, who was very, very poor. He worked like a sharecropper on the farm of a rich man, of a treasurer. And the day came that Venerable Sariputta, the number one monk of the Buddha, he had been in a long retreat, 7 days of unmoving. And when he came out, he surveyed the world with psychic vision, wondering whom he could really help that day by allowing them to do him some service and gain spiritual power from that. So he noticed that there was this fellow, Puna, who had a believing heart and was suffering so poor. He was out working that very day, even though it was a holiday. So out of compassion, the Venerable Sariputta went to his home and encountered his wife just as she was heading out to the field with food for her husband to give him a break in the middle of the day. And she saw the Venerable and she thought, oh, sometimes you see these great ones and you have no food. Sometimes you have food and you don't see one of the great ones. Today I have food and here's the great one. And she joyfully shared, or gave all of her husband's food to the Venerable Sariputta, and he went on his way. Then she hurried back into the house and scraped together some more food. And then she went out to her husband in the field and she explained to him quickly why she was so very late. And she was afraid he would be, displeased and wouldn't get to share in the spiritual benefits of having given the food to the Venerable Sariputta. He said, wife, the Venerable also came over here and I gave him some water and a toothpick, and I think we're of one mind. And he rejoiced in what she had done. And then they both got very sleepy and they took a nap. And when they woke up, they found gold in the field. He became immensely rich. He went from terrible, terrible poverty to great wealth. So he had a daughter named Uttara. From a young age, she was accustomed to seeing the Buddha and his monks coming to her father's home. He became very wealthy. He was even raised up to the status of a treasurer of the kingdom. And so he was able to take care of many, many monks. So they were often in his home. At the age of 7, little Uttara entered a stage of enlightenment. There are 4 stages of enlightenment, you see. And at the first stage, a person still has a lot of the ordinary feelings and responses, but they've let go an awful heavy burden of some wrong beliefs that would cause a person to suffer. She was a delightful child, a light-hearted person. She grew up absolutely beautiful, sparkling, radiant. When she came of age for marriage, it happened that the treasurer, who was the landlord that her father used to work for, honored her father by saying, let us connect our families. He did not look down on Puna for having been poor, having been his own servant before. He said, let us connect our families. I want your daughter to join my family and marry my son. Puna said, oh, no, no, no. No, you see, my daughter is a believer in the Buddha, in the Lord Buddha. I cannot put her into the family of unbelievers. I'm sorry, good friend, sir. Well, this was a terrible mistake. The other treasurers came to him and said, look, you cannot break your good relations with this man. You have to give your daughter. So with a lot of misgiving, with reluctance, Puna gave his consent. And dear, beautiful little Uttara went off joining the family of his former employer. And after a period of time, she sent a message home. Father, you have put me in prison. In all the time I've been here, I have not even gotten to see a monk of the Lord Buddha. I have not gotten the chance to give alms. I have not gotten a chance to earn any spiritual benefits, any merits. Oh, Father, what to do? He was heartbroken. And he pondered, what could he do for his beloved daughter? And he came up with a plan. He sent her 15,000 gold coins. And he said to her, sent her the message, Uttara, in this town, there's a very, very famous courtesan, a very high-paid prostitute. She was a lady of learning and talent, culture, and extraordinary beauty. I think perhaps a cultural equivalent would be a great supermodel. I've been in the monastery too long. I don't know the names of supermodels these days. Maybe it's better not to try to give one of the names anyway. But you can imagine your favorite supermodel. Just insert her into the story. He said, hire this woman to be in your place for 2 weeks so that you can invite the Lord Buddha and his monks to your home each day and feed them. She thought that was a wonderful plan, and that's what she did. She contacted this courtesan. Her name is Sirima. And Sirima came. She commanded 1,000 gold coins every night. This was no ordinary woman. We have to understand the great beauty of this Sirima. She's the kind of woman who could wear a peacock feather in her hair and carry it off. She's the kind of woman who would drive a carriage or be driven in a carriage looking left and right at all the people staring at her great beauty, with her head held high, with a bit of contempt at how much less they were than she. She was gorgeous. Men, kings, would fight over who was the favorite of Sirima. Uttara brought the beautiful, extraordinary lady into the presence of her husband and said, Dear husband, this is Miss Sirima. I would like to propose that she be your wife for the next 2 weeks and that I have permission that I can go my own way in the house and be relieved of all household duties and serve the Lord Buddha. He took one look at the beautiful woman and he agreed very, very readily. So it became Sirima for 2 weeks who would take care of the in-laws, who would rise up early and take care of the husband, lay out his clothing for him, who would run all the household servants and make sure the food was prepared. There were many, many servants. There were many duties. Meanwhile, Uttara has contacted the Buddha, and he very compassionately agrees. He will come every day with 500 monks to her mansion, her home, and there receive his food. This is right at the end of what they call a rains retreat, a period of time where he would stay in one place. At the end of those 2 weeks, he would be moving on. So this was her last chance for some time to get to see him. So in great compassion, he agreed to this plan. So the days went by, and day after day, Uttara was in the kitchen with her sleeves rolled up, and flour and ghee and butter all over her, and you can just imagine the dust and the chaos, well, the floury dust and the chaos in the kitchen. She wants to cook the Lord Buddha's food with her own hands. So she's right in there with the serving ladies, and they're all bustling around, preparing food for 500 monks. And so it goes until right near the end of the 2 weeks. Everything was going great. Meanwhile, Sirima is serving a husband in every way, of course. And she is having a great time. We have to stop and think about the psychology behind Sirima. Now, this detail is not given in the canon. The rest of the story appears in the canon. in the Book of the Mansions and also in the commentaries to the Dhammapada. But it does not say that her pride was greatly wrapped up in this, but I think we can imagine it. You see, she's been a courtesan since her earlier, young adulthood. And she has done the best at that. She's the top of her field. But she's never been a wife. She's never served the in-laws. This is a new role for her. Perhaps something she always longed to do. And she's going to be the best. Surely she will be the best wife. Well, on the second to the last day, the husband of Uttara looked into the kitchen at his wife, who's in there busy bustling around and covered in, the debris of the food, and he thinks, what is this? Here she was born poor, now she's fabulously wealthy, and she doesn't know how to enjoy her wealth. She'd rather go bustling around like a scullery maid. What a fool! And looking at her, his face twisted into a snide smile. Well, Surima, the courtesan, saw him smiling into the kitchen. She took it for a regular smile. In fact, she even mistook it for a warm, loving, even lustful kind of smile. And she wondered, what is he smiling at? She wondered, who is he smiling at? Remember now, she is the wife. Her time is almost up, but for now, she is the wife. Who has he smiled at? She wants to know, and she looks in, and she sees the wife. And she is furious. I am the wife. For these 2 weeks, I am the wife. How dare she? How dare he? She went into a murderous rage. Does it seem extreme? You've never reacted when your pride is triggered a little bit? Someone criticizes something you wrote? They just say one little word, or they don't praise it enough. Maybe you get a little huffy. Someone doesn't like your driving and they say, oh yeah, you can drive then. You ever done that? We have all kinds of triggers that can kick up our pride. Hopefully we'll be mindful. Hopefully we'll be gracious. We'll remember the good qualities of the person that we have some dissatisfaction towards, and we'll put it down. We won't let it grow into a hurricane of wrath. We certainly won't act on it, will we? Well, unfortunately, Surima did not have any kind of religious training. She did not have any sort of ability to put down her wrath. And in the middle of her fury, she raced into the kitchen, confronting Uttara. Uttara looked up at the courtesan, and her first thought was, this is the woman who is my good friend. It is because of her I am able to serve the Lord Buddha and his monks for these 2 weeks. And then she realized what's going on. That Surima, the courtesan, has grabbed a ladle of boiling ghee. Do you know what ghee is? Ghee is when you boil butter and then you scrape off the milk fats and then you have this pure oil left. It burns very hot, actually. It boils at a very high temperature. And this courtesan, in her murderous rage, has grabbed up a ladle full of it, and she flings it directly into the face of her rival, the wife, Uttara. Boiling oil. This is not in the day of a sophisticated 21st century burn center. Boiling oil in the face is not only extreme, exquisite pain, it's death from infection, death as the skin melts away. It's a horrible death. It's a cruel, nasty, horrible thing. Now remember though, Uttara has had mental training. She has learned from the Lord Buddha how to work with the mind. She has learned mindfulness practice. With mindfulness practice, one pays attention to what you're doing with your physical body all the time. You pay attention to what feelings get triggered. You pay attention to your mind states. You know what's going on inside and outside of you, right around you, all the time. You're alert, you're awake. That's mindfulness. She's very good with mindfulness. She's also very strong in loving kindness. She's cultivated her heart to be so bright and so open. It's not because she was born special. It's because she trained her mind. Anybody can do it if they just get the directions and follow through. So as this boiling oil is being thrown into her face, her mindfulness is so quick and her loving kindness, well developed, is so strong that she's able to have this thought. Now think, what would you think with boiling oil coming towards your face? You might think help. You might think ag, or some screaming kind of sound. You might think, let me kill her. She thinks, she's just had that thought, mind you, that this is my good friend. It's because of her I'm able to serve the Lord Buddha. She's able to think, if I have an iota of anger, even a tiny bit of anger towards this woman, let the boiling oil sear me. Let it burn. And if not, let it roll off of me like water, harmlessly. She's very quick. She had time to think all of that. And the boiling oil hit, and what do you think it did? It rolled off of her, harmlessly. So what did the courtesan do? She grabbed another ladle full of oil and came at her again. That's what she did. Well, by this point, the serving ladies in the kitchen have become aware of what's happening. Someone is trying to murder the beautiful, lovable lady of their home. And they were fierce. They didn't have this mental training. They attacked Sirima hard. They didn't just disarm her of the boiling oil. They flung her to the ground and they beat her with their fists and they kicked her with their feet. While Uttara, the one that the courtesan tried to kill, is standing there crying out, don't hurt her, don't hurt her. Uttara finally had to throw herself on top of Sirima's body on the floor before the serving ladies would back off and stop kicking and beating. And there they are on the floor. And then all's quiet for a moment. And then Sirima looked at the courtesan. She said, why did you do this evil thing? And then she helped the courtesan sit up. And she called to her servant ladies, get this oil, get this thing, get this plaster, get this, because this courtesan was hurt. And they brought her all these healing oils and ointments, and she applied them herself onto the cuts and bruises, bandaged her up a bit. By now, of course, the courtesan's rage is long gone. Rage is fickle like that, You can act on it in a great frenzy, ride the crest of the wave. And then there's that sickening moment when all the repercussions start to become clear in the mind. What has she done? Here she is, one of the famous great ladies of her time, and she just tried to kill the treasurer's daughter. It's like some famous lady, Heidi, Madonna, just tried to kill Bill Gates' daughter. This is big news. This is a big splash. This is possibly going to lead to execution even. This is attempted murder. She's horrified what she has done. Anger leads us to that point, doesn't it? And she bows all the way down to the ground, puts her forehead at the feet of the wife and says, oh, please forgive me. Now again, the wife, Uttara, with her mental training, is very quick, very shrewd. And she instantly comes up with the response that's just right. She says, I'll forgive you if my father forgives you. And the courtesan says, oh, your father, Puna, the treasurer. The wife says, no, 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 no. That's my father in the rounds of rebirth in samsara. I mean my father not in the worldly life, my father in the spiritual life, the Lord Buddha. If he forgives you, I forgive you. So you see what she's done. She's cleverly created a meeting between the Lord Buddha and the courtesan, and at a moment when the courtesan's heart is blown wide open by her remorse. So the courtesan says, oh yes, okay. And in her feeling of shame, she wants to do something. So she says, look, let me go home to my own mansion, and my ladies and I will prepare the meal for tomorrow, and we'll bring it. You can serve it because I'm too ashamed, I can't. But you serve the meal, and when the Lord Buddha is done, I'll beg his pardon. And that's what she did. She went home and told her own ladies what had happened. And they went to work all night, and they made the food for the 500 monks headed by the Lord Buddha. And they came all the way back in the morning with all this food, the whole feast, fully prepared. And then the feast was served. Everyone ate. The Lord Buddha showed he had finished by removing his hand from his alms bowl. And then it was the time. Now we have to stop and think. Remember, this is big news. Now you can't imagine that all the serving ladies of the kitchen kept this thing to themselves. You know, one of the most famous ladies of the day has just tried to kill one of the other most famous ladies of the day without reason. This is big stuff. And so it must have spread all around. The canon doesn't specify that there was a huge crowd gathered, but I would imagine that there was. Certainly, though, you had Sirima's own serving ladies. You had all the household servants of Uttara's household, plus Uttara's husband and her in-laws, and all the 500 monks gathered. So, Sirima comes running out. She flings herself onto the ground in front of the Lord Buddha, bowing to him and begging forgiveness. And the Buddha says, well, for what should I forgive you, Sirima? And the courtesan says, Lord, I did this and this. I became jealous. I poured the boiling oil. It didn't burn her. I tried again, and so forth. And the Buddha said, is this story true, Uttara? She said, yes, Lord. It happened just like that. And the Buddha said, Uttara, what was in your mind when the boiling oil came at you? She said, Lord, I had the thought that this woman is my good friend because she allowed me to serve you and the monks. And that if I have any anger towards her, even an iota, let the boiling oil sear me, but if not, if I have only loving kindness, let it roll off of me like water. And the Lord Buddha said, Sadhu, sadhu, well done, Uttara. And he praised her. And he talked. He gave a Dhamma talk. We don't know exactly what the contents of the Dhamma talk were, but he ended up with that stanza that I mentioned to you before. Conquer anger by love, conquer evil by good, conquer the stingy by giving, conquer the liar by truth. Here, anger and evil were conquered by loving kindness and goodness. So, what do you think happened as the result of all this? Sirima became enlightened. She went to the first stage of enlightenment. And who else do you suppose did? The husband, the unbelieving husband, who thought it was such a joke that the wife wanted to serve these monks. He entered the first stage of enlightenment along with his parents, and many, many people benefited. Such is the power of loving kindness. Such is the power of a good, loving, mindful reaction. So how do you want to react? You're driving along and someone does something unsafe, maybe even gives you a rude gesture as they go by. Are you going to become angry? Or are you going to be mindful and kind? When someone criticizes you or your child or your home, when someone says some kind of wrong word to you, when someone lies about you, when a coworker turns the boss against you, how do you really want to act? In a way that causes someone to have the just punishment for their wrongdoing, in a way that brings harm to people with your own anger? Or do you want to see if you can bring joy to the situation with your own beauty, with your own goodness? It's possible. You can have this victory.